Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Ben Rose. I work for the Vermont Division of Emergency Management as Recovery Section Chief, and I'm the alternate state coordinating officer for our open disasters, now including our new one, Disaster 4810. And this is the applicant briefing for public assistance applicants for that disaster. So if there's anybody on the call who had private residential damages, this is the wrong call for you. This is for towns, nonprofits, and state agencies to seek FEMA reimbursement for infrastructure repairs. It's not for individual assistance. And if you put something in the chat, we can refer you to the 800 phone number for individual assistance if that's your issue. Some of you have been through many applicant briefings before for public assistance. For some of you, it's your first time. And so we are fortunate because we have a seasoned public assistance officer in Kim Kanareki. We stole her from FEMA over a decade ago. We've been through many disasters, large and small, together. The program is complicated and it's always changing. So you're about to hear a lot of information. It will be recorded. I believe Brett Pierce is helping us with the audio visuals today, and I will be monitoring the chat. But mostly, I want to hand you over to the capable hands of Kim Kanareki to walk you through how this program works and hopefully to set you all up for success as you submit your request for public assistance, meet your FEMA program delivery managers, have your exploratory call, develop your damage inventory, conduct your recovery scoping meeting, and then write your projects with FEMA, and most importantly, do your repair work and seek reimbursement from it for FEMA. So Kim, take it away. I'll be monitoring the chat, and I will be jumping in now and then just to give you an occasional break from Kim's voice to change it up and to insert any timely questions from the chat. Go,
Great.
Kim.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. As Ben said, my name's Kim Kanareki. I'm the Vermont State Public Assistance Officer. And yeah, I've been with the state now going on 11 years. And what I'm about to present today, I apologize in advance. It is an extremely it's a lot of information, and I feel like I'm talking at you. Know that you can call me, or we can do a one-on-one after the briefings are completed next week, and I can go in more detail. You're not expected to memorize all this, and it won't all apply to you. We will have the presentations put online so that you can go back and look at it later. And we also have a whole slew of information on the Vermont League of Cities and Towns Flood Ready website, and they're a great resource as well. I do want to say up front that the public assistance program, oh, I think somebody's mic is unmuted. If you could please just mute your mics. If you do have a question at any time during the presentation, go ahead and raise your hand. I think there's a little hand at the top of the screen that you can just click and we'll know that you have a question. But yes, this is a lot of information. You are not required to memorize everything. And if you need a little breather from me, just reach out and we'll just talk one-on-one. I know some of you are going through this for the first time. Some of you are going this probably for the too many time. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to talk today about what public assistance is. This is only for the state agencies, the towns, and some of the private nonprofits. It is not for any homeowners or individuals. That's a separate program. And it looks like Katie's posting some stuff in the chat as well. We're going to talk today also about how you can become eligible, what you need to do, We're going to talk also about the new simplified procedures policy. If you were in disaster 4720, which was the July 2023 storm, you probably were on the back end of the simplified procedures policy. This time we're going to be starting on the front end, and hopefully it'll be a much smoother process. We have good qualified PDMGs already at the JFO located in Williston, ready to go. We'll also talk about contracting, procurement. That is federal requirements. Those are not FEMA requirements. And so when FEMA's asking for this information, they're just trying to cover you to avoid any OIG or auditing, which this disaster is so large, I expect it to have some audits down the road. We want to keep the funding that we're given and that we're obligated. So we want to ensure that we're meeting all those requirements. I'll mention time extensions. Obviously, the program has time limits in which you have to complete the construction work, the debris work. Those limits can be extended, and with good reason. So we'll be working, we'll talk about how to do that. And lastly, we'll talk about how to close out your grants at the end. I know that's down the line. And so some of the stuff I say today, you might forget by a year, and that's okay. I have a great team of folks that are going to be working with us. You'll be assigned probably a guidehouse or state public assistance coordinator to work you through the whole program. They're kind of your liaison between FEMA and, and your grant. So they'll be able to answer some questions. And lastly, we'll talk about the money, which I know everybody wants to just jump to today, but we'll get to that a little later. This disaster is 4810, and I call it Hurricane Beryl, but essentially it's a little more involved in that. It's actually severe storms, flooding, landslides, and mudslides. That's the type of disaster that we had. And it was declared just 3 days ago by FEMA. We just got notification that Orange County is now included. So all counties and all applicants in the following counties can apply. Those: Addison, Caledonia, Chittenden, Essex, Lamoille, Orleans, Orange. I have Orleans on the choice. Go Orleans, and Washington. And it's only for damages that you had from that event on July 9th through July 11th. So if you had any damages from the July 30th storm, that storm, we have made a federal disaster declaration request, but we have not yet received it. And also there was one storm I know which in the town of Stowe was involved, June 23rd, and that would also be a different disaster. So those damages would not be able to be captured inside this disaster. All right. The program is a reimbursement program. So it's highly encouraged that you do not ever wait for FEMA to tell you what to do. FEMA will not build our roads. They will not, tell you how to build your roads. And in fact, they're going to be looking to you for guidance on how to do that. That's the requirement of the town to say, this is what was damaged, this is what we did, or this is what we intend to do. And if you're not quite sure, there's great resources. I know that VTrans district techs in your communities are excellent resources on how to, if you're unsure what to do with the roads. Also, A&R River Engineers are a great resource. And to get where we are today, there was a lot of legwork. It does take a time to get where we are. It's, obviously this happened July 9th, and now we're just getting the declaration mid-August. What happens is a lot of damages occur from an overnight storm, and we're required to collect them, and VTrans works with us to put them all into a survey 1, 2, 3. When we feel like we've met that threshold, we reach out to FEMA to come in and do what's called a preliminary damage assessments. And they go out and they verify some areas. That's why they may not have hit your community, to determine if we made the county threshold as well as the statewide threshold. We have to reach just over $1 million in statewide threshold to make that request. And then once we've hit it, we make the request, the governor makes the request to the president, and which was just approved. And FEMA's cost share is typically 75% federal share. So for every dollar, 75 cents is going to be reimbursed by the federal government for your eligible damages. All right, and there's different tiers of the FEMA Public Assistance Program, and it is required to meet each tier of the level of the pyramid in order to get funding. And we'll go through each one of these. The first is you must be an applicant in one of those declared counties. State agencies are eligible, local governments are eligible, as well as critical private nonprofit agencies, such as hospitals, emergency care facilities, schools, and any fire and rescue services. Yes, Ben.
I just wanted to jump in to give you a breath before you launch into the eligibility pyramid tiers here. To note that I am trying to talk about any acronyms that I hear in the chat, and if anybody has a question about an acronym that may get voiced, just put it in the chat and I will try to help. And also, just to give people a chance, if anybody has a kind of an upfront question or a general question up to this point.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I am full disclosure, I'm like not monitoring in the chats.
Yeah.
I'm not a good tech person, so I'm trying to stay focused on the screen and the slides. So if there are any questions, throw your hand up, or Ben or somebody just interrupt me, and
I'll just interrupt Kim as best I can.
Yeah.
And also in the chat, we already have links to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns information, and I put in the email address adm2024floods@vermont.gov. You can always shoot an email to that email address or copy it when you send something to Kim so that she's not trying to deal with 500 emails a night. And we have a team of smart people helping to answer questions. I lock myself out of the grants portal, that sort of thing. We have a whole team of people who can help you.
Yeah, so speaking of the grants portal, up in the upper right corner of the screen is a number that you probably want to throw into your cell phone. The grants portal is a FEMA portal. And so, once you're in the portal, make sure that you have 2 personnel that are registered. Many of you already have town accounts. So please do not create a new town account, like, another account within it. If you cannot get it into the account because there's no one registered, or somebody's left the town and you don't have that access, reach out to us and we'll work with you to get that. Know that it's super difficult for me to get into your portal accounts and make changes. So it's required that you keep your personnel updated. I know that sometimes somebody from the town just ups and leaves one day and they're gone. So there's different cases on that, but if you log yourself out, your first thing is to do is call that FEMA help desk or try to get it through the portal and do the reset there. All right, and the portal is where you're going to have full visibility on your projects as they're being developed. You can determine at any time where it is in the process. Is it at the with your FEMA project delivery manager? Is it at the FEMA CRC where they write the projects? Is it pending review or obligation? You'll be able to know at any time by visiting the portal. And more importantly, this is where you actually apply to be in the disaster. We only have 30 days from the date that this disaster was declared. So we only have till September 20th to log in to the portal and submit your request for public assistance. If you have not submitted your request for public assistance for 4810, by that deadline, there's no exceptions. We are unable to add you into the disaster. So if you are not sure if you had enough damages, there's no penalty for just putting yourself in there. So make sure that you meet that deadline. And once you're in the portal, at the top of the screen, you're going to see a big red, there's been a disaster in your area. Please submit your RPA. That's where you'll click in and submit your information. And no, it will ask several questions, like how many facilities did you have damage? The total. You do not have to be accurate. You're not going to be locked into any of those. If you're not sure, just, 5 roads, less than $1 million, that kind of thing. So just do your best to answer it in the best way you can. And ensure that you have 2 folks. I stress this because I know some of you towns still have 1. And if somebody's on vacation or somebody gets sick or ends up in the hospital, there are deadlines and requirements of the program, and you must meet them. Like FEMA doesn't live here. We live here, so we, tend to have a little more time, but they don't live here. They come, they leave their families to help us recover in the most timely fashion possible. And we have to meet those requirements by logging in, having somebody in there. There are little task bells that are in the upper right-hand corner that you have to adhere to. So things you have to sign off on, EEIs. And if you do not, there are RFIs. Those are requests for information that go out. If they're not responded to in that manner, your project will move forward and probably not in a manner that you want. So please just know if you're having issues with anything and you're making good progress and you have somebody in there, reach out to us and we can help. But it's important that you make this an important part of your regular job duties. I know it's a lot. We'll talk a little later about what you can do to get more help. So we'll go over that in a little while. All right, so the next thing is not only are you have to be an applicant and register in the portal, we have to have damages. And that eligible facilities are damaged elements. We'll talk a little bit about some of those, like a culvert. If a culvert is only overtopped but not displaced or damaged in the ground, the road would become eligible, but not the culvert. So it must be a damaged facility in order to be eligible. FEMA will reimburse for all damaged elements that are maintained by the town and that you can prove that we're in good time working order at the time of the disaster, and also not covered by another federal program. I think that some towns have main thoroughfares through them that are federal highway. That's a different funding program. So make sure that you split those out and submit those into VTrans, because they're also going to have a disaster for the federal highway program. And FEMA will ask you for maintenance records. And some towns don't have that formal record system. So, please just let them know, hey, in March, we go around and inspect our culverts to ensure they're clean. We go out in, such and such months and throw down gravel. What you do to keep those roads in good working condition so that we're not showing that we have neglected them. And then lastly, on the slide, is there must be at least $3,900 of costs per site. So obviously less than that is general maintenance, potholes, or it's just really costly to push one grant through. So it has to meet that minimum in order to be eligible. All right, and this is a very important slide, and I can tell you probably almost everybody on this call neglected to do this, the last disaster, which could have been, fortunately, that FEMA leadership allowed it, but many towns did not sign off on their damage inventory by deadline. The damage inventory is a list of where you put all your damages in the portal. And it's like your GPS location of it, like, Smith Road. This is the damage damages we had on Smith Road. This is the dimensions of it. This is the location. And just listing them all off, everything needs to be listed on there. If it's not listed on there and not signed off within 60 days of the recovery scoping meeting that you have with your FEMA person, it's considered not eligible, because we could have 3 other federal flooding events happen within that time. And it's difficult to prove that, you know, a year later, if we're trying to add in another road, that it didn't get damaged sometime during that, you know, that it actually got damaged a year ago. It's hard to show that we're just discovering this damage now. So go drive your roads, find out what damages you have, and start to put this on the damage inventory, and be sure to sign off in the portal on it. All right, and the next thing is there's different types of work. There's emergency work that FEMA will classify, and permanent work. Emergency work is like a quick fix or debris removal, and debris removal from public property, not private. And then the permanent work is categorized by FEMA in categories C through G. And that's not something you need to memorize. It's just if they say, oh, this is a category C project, you know, that's roads and bridges, culverts. They put water control facilities in D, equipment or building damages in E, and then F would be your public utilities. And also there's category G. So if you have any parks or cemeteries or recreation, that's also an eligible facility that many don't think of. What emergency work is not is, let's say, and this happened a lot in the last disaster, I want to prevent it. If you have a road that gets damaged and you throw down gravel to make it a quick fix, did you guys lose me? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Kim. The
Oh,
audience
okay.
is muted.
Okay. All right. So I just saw something in the chat that said no one could hear me, which is probably to your benefit, but all right, great. Well, if you have a road that's damaged and you throw down gravel to make it a quick temporary fix, it's obviously a temporary fix, but it's not really, should not be a category B project. And this is why, because if you are going to go back and add additional gravel or complete the work, you know, make it more permanent, so to speak, it becomes all category C. When it becomes B, you're going to lose out on a little bit of funding, because there's B, category A and B are only paid for overtime. That means, like, you know, any overtime or any work that you did labor wise on that fix, the temporary pass, you're only going to get overtime, and likely you probably worked during regular work hours to do it, and you're not picking up the gravel, so it's becoming a part of that permanent work project. So those should be category C. I'm going to work closely with FEMA on that, and I think we have a great team of FEMA PDMGs, which you'll be impressed with, that know that, you know, quick fixes aren't necessarily temporary. Like, they should become a part of your permanent project. I'm getting too in the weeds there, so we'll just talk about it as it comes up. And then a little bit of some of the emergency work we talked as debris removal. And I know that you guys probably worked with some of our contractors, some of you, and in the public, if you have not, only debris that's in the public right away is eligible. You know, it's not eligible if it's picked up from private property unless you had that homeowner bring it out to the right of way. And Ben, I see you came back onto screen. Are you gonna jump in here? All right, go ahead, Ben.
Hi, Kim.
Thank you.
Yes. First of all, I lost my internet for a little while there, so was gone for a little while, but you advanced several slides, so I don't see anything new in the chat. I would just say that as we're talking about categories of work, if people have access to the chat, I would appreciate it if anybody who had damages from this event,
Mhm.
which are not road damages. In other words, categories other than A, debris, B, emergency work, or C, roads. If you had library, town hall, wastewater treatment plant, that anything that's not roads and emergency response, please put your town name or organization name and just one sentence about what happened in the chat. We're just trying to get out ahead of folks who may have special situations and understand
Yeah.
if we're dealing with primarily road damages. And I
Absolutely.
understand some people don't have access to the chat, so it's just a starter. Thank you.
Yeah. If you don't have access to the chat, just holler at us or send us an email and we'll know what kind of damages you had. And then the last one's the C through G. It looks like yes. Yeah, I see some of them coming in. C through G, you want to make sure that you have all your proper permits in place. You know, make sure that if you have a culvert in and around the stream that you have reached out to your A&R river engineer immediately. It will, you know, it will expedite your funding if you know what you're going to be doing at the road. The FEMA is not going to say, you know, I think that should be a bridge. No, it's actually the state requirement to tell you what needs to go in that place. So reach out to your A&R river engineers and your district VTrans techs immediately if you do not know what needs to go in there, and make sure that you have those proper permits early on, because you don't want to get through the FEMA process and find out you don't have that attached to it, and it really will delay your funding. So do the good due diligence now to find out what you need to do and start on that path. If you're unable to do it with in-house personnel and you need to put it out for contract, get those out sooner rather than later. Because once you have those RFPs and those bid responses back, you can present that to your FEMA person and they will write up your project to reflect the cost of that contract. And instead of trying to figure it out. All right, so it looks like we have some town hall damages, some water sewer facilities and stuff. We'll talk a little bit, I think, at a later point about insurance, because it's required that if you have building or equipment damage to reach out to your insurance agency and file a claim immediately. FEMA is the last resort for funding, and it only picks up where your insurance leaves off. So get on the ball and get that going first, because it can take quite a while, as we found with the last disaster. All right, this slide is a little overwhelming, and that's why we are going to be having this onto the Vermont League of Cities and Towns website. You know, there's a lot to know about the program, and particularly damaged culverts. You know, if you have a 12-inch culvert that washed or is damaged, or well, let's just say it overtops, it's not damaged, it's not displaced, therefore it's not eligible. This is for only damaged facilities. Obviously, the road below that washed out as a result of this small culvert would be eligible. However, if the town elects to upgrade that culvert, you know, a size or so, they can through possible funds based on the cost of the road damage. And that's what discussions on, it's called hazard mitigation, and it's 406 hazard mitigation. It's tied directly into your FEMA project. That means the cost of the FEMA project will determine how much hazard mitigation that you have to apply to it. If the culvert is damaged or displaced from the storm, it's eligible to be replaced in kind. And it's also eligible to be replaced to state codes and standards. And that's why it's important to make sure that you reach out to VTrans and look at your orange books and determine what size it actually needs to be, and reaching out to A&R. I put a couple websites on here for the general stream alteration permit and the municipal roads general permit. You know, if you have a culvert that continues to get damaged over and over and over, it's a good opportunity to discuss that with FEMA on how to, you know, how to prevent that. But FEMA wants to not visit you every year for the same damages. So if they can make this more resilient, they will. So that's a discussion with your FEMA person. Okay, so the last tier of the pyramid is the cost. Obviously, if you're an applicant, you have something damaged, and you know what you're going to do to it. It still has to be a reasonable cost. You cannot. There have been contractors, I think, down in FEMA when I worked down there for or Hurricane Katrina when I worked there, that were uncost reasonable. You cannot inflate. Obviously, that's illegal. So you want to make sure that the costs that you have are reasonable. Make sure that you're not overpaying for materials. The cost of inflation everywhere is something that we can't control. But if you know of a particular place that's inflating it as a result of the disaster, that's a different situation. And then that's why it's important to contract, procure your contractors accurately and make sure that they are cost reasonable. And Ben, do you want to jump in and?
Well, so
something?
Kim, I was trying to keep up with questions in the chat, and about 3 minutes ago, it started getting away from me. So I thought we would take a breath and try to catch up on questions that may be building up in the chat. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me pepper you with a few questions. On the damage inventory form, do all culverts need to be listed individually, even if they are on the same road?
I would say yes, because I think if it's over 200 yards, I think we have FEMA on the line. I saw that the infrastructure branch director joined us. Chris is on the line, I think, at least. If they're greater than
Good morning, Kim.
Good morning. Am I correct? If it's greater than 200 yards apart, they're going to be separate locations. Is that correct?
Yes, we consider them separate locations, but we can probably logically group them together if that's beneficial. But to answer your first question, certainly we would prefer, even if they're right next to each other, we'd like you to say, hey, there's two culverts right next to each other.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think there's different reasonings behind that. Is one, one may or may not become eligible, or two, if you've completed work on one of the culverts, but you still have two further up the road that's still complete, you do not want to hold up funding on the one that's already completed. So obviously you can estimate the work to be completed, and that's probably your best option, but it's always good to just keep those separated out. Another question?
Next question.
Yeah,
there are a few. Michael Z from Plainfield asked, sorry, I lost it now. Can emergency repairs occur to Plainfield's water and sewer system referenced by Gary above? Work entails burying the sewer line under the Great Brook prior to winter, currently attached to Tent Bridge. And I wrote, Michael, yes, emergency repairs can and should proceed forthwith. Never wait for FEMA on emergency repairs. Do you concur?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Does it qualify?
Josh asks, why are time and material contracts not allowed after the emergency phase?
What? There is no, I don't know why that phrase keeps coming up. There is no emergency phase. That's not a free for all where you can do anything in your town with anyone. I've said it like disaster and disaster and disaster. And there's somebody out there feeding false information, and please make it stop, because it's not, it will hurt you if you consider like an emergency phase to be able to do whatever you want, whatever cost it is. That's not true. If in the heat of the disaster, you are, having to pull in a contractor to go close a road quickly, That would be okay. What is not okay is having him rebuild that road or putting it back to pre-disaster. Those have to be procured and contracted accurately, period. Like, you can do it as you wish. Just know that the funding could be compromised if it's not done at a cost reasonable rate, and you're showing that you have full and like it, you have to allow many contractors to engage in the program. There could be some up in Canada, way more cost effective. You know, and this is not a FEMA requirement. This is a federal contracting requirement, in which it's a very, very boring 8-hour class that I've attended. But they are serious about the policies of ensuring that you're reaching out to all social, economic, and women, minority, and everyone, that you're not just calling up your brother-in-law saying, hey, we need your services, you know, we'll be paying you for it. And that's what happens a lot. And that's just to be avoided. And it's not something that, you know, FEMA might, I've seen some towns, you know, try to talk me into it, saying this should be allowed, or talk FEMA into it. Even if you talk us into it and we push a project through, know if it's not done properly, it could be de-obligated by OIG later. So just please make sure that you follow the program process, which I'm going to talk about soon in the contracting phase. Is there another tough question, or should we continue?
And carry on, Kim. I'm trying to keep up as we
Okay.
go.
All right. We'll be probably answering a lot of these questions in some of the slides, hopefully. So, so what do you track when you're tracking the work that you're doing in your roads? This is these next few slides I'm just gonna kind of fly through, because obviously we probably keep track of our laborers. But as I said earlier, you know, if you're picking up debris or doing any emergency work, which is like, you know, sandbagging or a quick throw to make it accessible, that is only eligible for overtime labor. So only overtime labor of your employees is eligible for that type of work. But if you're doing the permanent repairs, all labor is eligible. Now, if you have volunteers like from a church that come, or some youth organization, or just, you know, residents in the area, there's different, you can count that towards your share of the grant. So each grant is 75% federal share. The remaining 25 is a portion from the state and a portion from the town that's responsible. Your portion can be offset by claiming those volunteer hours. If you have documented their name, where they worked, their dates and their hours that they worked. And all the work must be emergency related. Like if they're helping sandbag, that's at 28. You don't pay them, but FEMA will say for every hour that you've documented properly, it will offset your cost share by $28.14. And that's the last project that they typically write. All right, and then the next thing is your equipment. Keeping track of who's on what equipment. And I know this sounds like ridiculous, but there are some towns that don't like have daily log sheets, or they don't know who's been working on what equipment. You know, if you have Fred and he's out repairing a road, not only is Fred's time and that material time eligible, but whatever size truck that he used. FEMA has a cost code sheet on their website, and I think the latest one is the equipment sheet for the year 2023. And in that, you'll look up like a 1-ton pickup, you know, and it will have the cost per hour that already has figured in the gas and everything that would be eligible cost for that type of equipment. You know, and many towns neglect to include their chainsaw. So make sure that you, if you're working with your truck and you have a chainsaw too, make sure you're capturing that. And then also your materials. If you have your own town's gravel pit, there's got to be some cost related to, getting them there. So that cost is eligible for reimbursement. If you have to go all the way, if you're in the Waitsfield area and you have to go all the way to Stockbridge, for example, to go pick up your materials, the labor from the guy driving the truck, and his hours are also eligible for reimbursement to go get those materials. Cost of culverts. I
Hey,
saw something
Kim,
about, yeah,
Zara
chainsaw?
says we were told chainsaw was not included unless it was used.
Well, that's true.
Uh,
If you just
That's
have a
true,
chainsaw,
yeah.
any standby equipment, like if you have a whole house full of people and if they're not working, they're not eligible. If you have a whole bay full of fire trucks and none of them get sent out, they're not eligible. You can only claim the labor for the time that you're working, and you can only claim equipment for the time that it's essentially doing the job. So if you have like this guy, Fred, again, and he's working an 8-hour day, you cannot claim more equipment hours than Fred's hours, and if he's only operating the chainsaw 2 hours a day, then you can only claim the chainsaw for 2 hours, not his full 8. Oh, here we go. All right, so this is where it gets a little muddy, but I'm going to do my best. In 2022, which is right before, our last July 2023 storm, there were some new policies put into place. Well, one, now we have small projects or anything less than $1 million. So once you have a project written that's less than $1 million, that's it. So if it's written for 800,000 and it costs the town 750,000, you get 800,000 of it. If it's written for 800,000 and it ends up costing you 900,000 because you wait 2 years to do it or put it out and the costs go up, you still only get the 800,000. So it's important that, these costs be accurate. And that you get these put out for RFP as soon as possible so you know what those costs are going to be. Because if you don't know, FEMA can also write up an estimate for you. We need to know what those costs are for the work that's not done as soon as possible. All right, and so anything over $1 million is still a large, and it will be closed out in the full documentation manner, and they'll be closed for actuals. But all projects are now going to be going through what's called the simplified process. And please jump in anytime, Ben, Chris, Baggett, if you have, if I'm saying anything a little off. This new policy is, let's go into this next slide. It's where the town of, let's say the town of Fayston says, hey, we completed, North Fayston Road, $75,000 labor, $80,000 equipment, $100 million or whatever of materials. You present to FEMA on a summary sheet. And I think that there's summary sheets that will be sent out by your PDMGs. They might be found googly search online, but you're going to document that summary sheet to come up with that total. There's a labor one, there's material, and you'll present that to FEMA. You will no longer have to, this is only for small projects, by the way, anything over $1 million, it's all costs, but you will no longer have to provide every time card for those labors that on that summary sheet that you've presented. You will be required to keep it in case of an audit, but you will not have to work with FEMA and make sure every little time card's there. You will not have to distribute every little invoice. It's supposed to be expedited. It's supposed to be a lot less labor intensive of all that documentation. You still have to provide your permitting. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I got ADHDs. Every now and then my head goes to the chat, so I'm still here.
Hey,
So
Kim,
you will-
we're doing great, and you're moving through it smoothly. I think we're keeping up with the questions in the chat, but let's just take a breath here and see if anybody either has a thought bubble or question over their head, or a question in the chat that is still hanging open. And people will have to unmute themselves or put something in the chat if they're trying to jump in. Here we go. Kyle says, regarding the minimum site threshold amount, it might be helpful to the towns to mention bundling sites together to get over that threshold, such as 2 to 3 spots on the same road, to get over the 3,000. Okay. Yeah. So Kyle, what you're talking about is that there is a minimum. Well, Kim, go ahead.
Yeah. Here's somebody chatting or typing. So there is that minimum for a reason, because, you know, obviously we're not gonna like take 10 little tiny little potholes and capture them all. So that 3,900 is tiny. Like that includes your materials, your labor, and your equipment. You know, obviously FEMA might do town-wide debris into one project. They might do town-wide gravel loss, but they will not capture tiny little potholes and add them all up just to hit 3,900. You know, if there's some within so many feet of each other, that's obviously going to be all one site. Does that help? Okay, so a little bit more about simplified procedures is, yes, you still have to have proper permits. You know, they are going to be way more streamlined. The best thing you can do right now is to either, because the streamline, you're going to present to FEMA, this is what was damaged. This is how much it costs us to fix it. All right. They will write up the grant and your money will come flying out of the sky right quick. This process will be completely slowed down if you have something damaged. You say, hey, FEMA, this is what we had damaged. We've done nothing to it. We don't know what we're going to do to it. So the best thing is to know what you're going to do to it and have a cost estimate to provide to FEMA. Then they will write that up for that cost estimate. Put it out to bid, get some good cost estimates back. Have your VTrans person look it over. I have to say the VTrans techs are incredible. If you have any idea, like, oh, would this cost this much to do this? You can look at what it cost in the past to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide through. Again, this is only small. This is so wordy, and you can just read through this when you're completely bored in your own time, but it's a lot of information that's important, and that's why, I want to make sure everyone sees this. It's, simplify can only be done for small projects. It can only be done through, it covers all categories of work. You are still going to be required when you supply those forms to say, hey, we had Smith Road damaged. It had, so many feet by so many wide. You still have to give them the damage dimensions of what was damaged and the GPS location of those damages. Because FEMA's going to look at that summary sheet for that labor of like 50,000, and it has to be cost reasonable to them. If they say $50,000 for a 1 foot by 1 foot spot, that's not cost reasonable. So they're going to look at still what, they're not going to break it down by time cards and everything, but they will determine with those summary labor sheets and those materials and equipment are cost reasonable to the damages that you're identifying. So make sure that you've identified those. All right. And then they're going to ask, for the summary sheets, and you'll also have to supply them with the proper permits. I mentioned this a little earlier. There will be RFIs. Those are requests for further information. If your projects go over to the CRC where they're written, and you're still missing information, or if they have a question about some things, like the damage dimensions. I see so many coming back with this damage dimensions. That's why it's important to have those now. You don't want to send all your stuff to your FEMA person, have them send it over to the CRC where they write the project, and find out that you've missed out on half the stuff, have too much back and forth, really delay that funding. So make sure that you have everything presented at the PDMG, so it can not have that RFIs. If you do not respond to those in a timely manner, they will, they have deadlines on some of those. And if you don't respond by the deadline, you'll get a determination memo. And, or your project will just be deobligated or pushed through as with whatever information that they have. So make sure you meet those requirements and you're responding as quickly as possible to those. If you have questions about what they're even asking, reach out to the state, reach out to the FEMA representative, and we'll work with you. We definitely want you to succeed for sure. So, if you have damages that are still not completed, FEMA will schedule site inspections. In the previous disaster, it was site inspections were done during the initial scoping meetings where they met where you met your FEMA person. They meet the FEMA person and then talk about the program, talk about damages, and then they would have the site inspector go out with you to look at the damages that you haven't completed. That is not the way the program's supposed to work, and they will not be doing that this disaster. The site inspections will be scheduled separately. It's only for your incompleted work. They will be done quickly though, because they should be done quickly so that we can get your grants out the door quicker. But make sure when you're going around with your site inspector that they are seeing the damages. Has somebody that is able, such as the road foreman, to go show them that. Or, someone that knows the damages that were there and what needs to be done at that site, so they can talk to the site inspector and ask for a copy of that inspection report after the site inspector's completed it. Sometimes they say it'll be put into the portal. Say, no, can you please email it to me? There was a couple that did not get quite uploaded last event into the portal. So we want to be successful this disaster, and it is a large disaster. So it just the more knowledge that you have on the program and what you can do, the better off for success your town will be. The next 3 or 4 slides are completely overwhelming. It's where a lot of the funding gets taken back later. And so please make sure that you are procuring all your contracts accurately. There's all the federal rules are found at the 2 CFR 215. If you really want to go there and read all that, whoops, I'm sorry, I flew through that. But anytime your contract work will be over $250,000, you have to put it out for full and open competition. Your engineering, you must also put it out to bid if it's over that dollar amount. You must also procure that properly. No sole source contracts. You have to do the full and open competition. And that, that will also meet those requirements of the, small businesses and minority businesses all being able to respond. I think that's, there's a Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC now it's called. It used to be Apex, or is it Apex? They will assist with putting it out on the Vermont bid registry. That allows all contractors to see it and respond. And then you get good Apex. Thank you, Heather. And then you get good responses and have those RFPs in place for FEMA. Anything less than 250,000 of contract work, you're just going to want to call, if you know 3 or 4 contractors in the area that do that line of work, call them, document them, and, document their cost, and obviously go with the most cost reasonable one.
Hey, Kim.
If the guy that is the lowest bidder can't do it for 2 years, that's not reasonable. And so you can go with the next person. Yes, Ben.
Tim, there are a couple of questions popping up in the chat about contractors, engineers, and procurement of engineers. And let me just see if we can take a little sidebar on that, because it always comes up. The engineering cost associated with a specific project is part of that project. Engineers do need to be procured in accordance with the town's policy. Many towns have a standing contract with an engineering firm, and you can, paper the file documenting the cost reasonableness and existing procurement of an engineer to get the work done. The question from Bobby is, does engineering need to be a lump sum contract?
We're going to talk about lump sums in a moment, because
Okay.
they prefer unit price. So,
But for engineering, I would not say that engineering needs to be a lump sum
It doesn't
contract.
need to
There are
be.
a couple of different ways to structure it, but
it cannot be time and materials. I can tell you that.
right, that's the key thing.
And
Right.
that, how do you determine whether a person's services are cost reasonable if you hire somebody by time late?
Right.
I always
But
have used.
but lump sum is one way. FEMA applies
Yes.
cost curves for determining reasonableness of engineering
Yep.
costs. And Sean or somebody from FEMA, if you can jump on and talk about how FEMA looks at engineering costs, that would be appreciated. Sean or Chris.
Sean on too. Hi, Sean.
Well, I thought Sean was, but if
Um,
Chris
I'm
or
here.
somebody from FEMA.
I'm here, Ben.
Okay, can we talk about engineering costs and cost reasonableness?
Yeah, so they're generally sort of on a sliding scale, if you will, based upon the value of the contract for whatever it is that they're doing, rebuilding a firehouse or an office building, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So what we like to do for the applicant is write a project for the engineering and architecture portion of it, and we can obligate those funds to pay for those services, so the applicant doesn't have a lot of out-of-pocket money for those services. And then once we put the project together with the scope of work and the damage description and the cost, we will de-obligate the engineering costs from the original project and simultaneously re-obligate the engineering costs into the permanent work project. So it's a paperwork chase, if you will. It doesn't really affect the applicant, but that's generally the way it works. So ultimately, the engineering costs and the work all go together on one project. That said, the caution that I would give to the applicant is, if they go out and hire an architect or an engineer to do what they do, and then for whatever reason the work becomes ineligible, or they never do the work, as the case may be, if all of those engineering costs become ineligible too, if you don't do the work, or if the work is not eligible. So you need to make sure that you follow all of your policies and procedures, as well as FEMA's policies when you hire an architect or engineer.
Yep. And, you know, obviously, if it makes sense, and you're doing your due diligence to get it out, you know, and you're not having a time and materials contract, and it's over $250,000, you put it out on the Vermont bid registry, you will be fine. You know, I always have an example of why, you know, you can't have time and materials. And obviously, if somebody says $50 an hour, I'll help you work on your car. Another guy says, I'll do it for 20 an hour. Obviously, you're going to choose that $20 an hour guy, but you don't know he's going to take a week to do the work. And the other guy, the $50 an hour guy could get it done in 2 hours. So it has to be cost reasonable. And that's really what we're looking for, that you're not overpaying for their services. You're also going to make sure that your contractors are not debarred. You know, there are some debarred contractors, and I think that's all listed on sam.gov for that. That was in this previous slide. Just a couple other items on the slide, you know, if make sure that you do not let your contractor develop your scope of work. Make sure that they are following the scope of work that's outlined in the grant. Anything that they do that's above and beyond that or outside, if they run into ledge while they're doing the work and additional costs come about, let us know so that we can inform FEMA, and so it's not a surprise later. All right. And the next thing we're going to talk about is, you know, we just mentioned engineering cost. Those are not administrative costs for a town. Those are directly tied. Your engineer would be directly doing services on a certain road, so it become a part of that road project. Administrative costs are everyone that is on this call today. This 2-hour session is eligible for reimbursement at 100% of whatever your pay rate is. You know, you at the end of the disaster, when all of your other projects are written, when all of your other projects are completed, this will be the last project that you have to complete and close. And it's it may be written as an estimated project, just as a placeholder in your system, but it will be only paid out at the end for actuals. And so, you know, all the time that I think some of you spent a lot of hours and time with me during the PDA process, those hours are all eligible under administrative costs for your Cat Z. Anytime you drive FEMA around, that equipment cost for the truck or whatever of you use and your time is all eligible for the Cat Z. This is just costs related to doing the administrative portion of the grants, the meetings with FEMA, the emails with FEMA, the site inspections, the responding to RFIs, the documentation hustle back and forth, all the administrative work. And it's super overwhelming, which is why you're able to hire someone to do this services for you. You know, if your town's overwhelmed, you can put however your town typically hires the new personnel, they can put it out and say, hey, we would like to hire a temporary person to do these type of duties. And it has to be a cost reasonable rate for what it would be to hire this administrative person in your town. This person would need to document all their cost, because at the end, there would need to be a summary of what the work they did, also their time cards and proof they were paid. It is capped, however, at 5% of the total of all your projects. So if you had $1 million of total projects, for all of your projects, you get 5% of that 1 million to use towards administrative. But it's not just given to you, it's it has to be actual documented costs. I'm kind of a stickler on that. Like if you're and I think FEMA knows by now, right, Chris? Like if you have completed all the construction projects in your town already and everything's done, this project should be written as actuals with your FEMA person. Otherwise, you'll have to do a closeout with me. It's a lot longer process for me to send it to region and have it closed there than it is to have your FEMA PDMG write it for actuals and close it now. Sorry. All right. We're getting so overwhelmed, I know. And it's a lot. And no, I've been doing this 21 years. Oh. And I'm still 20 years old, but it's a lot of information, and it is the structure is all the same. Something's damaged. What did you do to fix it, or what do you intend to? The only thing that's like different now is a little bit less documentation. You know, and it is your job to state what was actual damage. So FEMA can determine cost reasonableness. You know, so many, how big was that damage? Let's see. All right. This is just a little bit more of what you can capture into your CAT-Z's site visits. I discussed some of that, like this applicant briefing or any other FEMA meetings you have.
Hey,
all right.
Kim,
Yeah.
We'll take a breath. We're a little more than an hour into our 2 hours. We're just about
Cool.
2/3 of our way through the slides, so we're doing fine. I'm getting into all kinds of trouble in the chat, trying to keep up. And
well, I'm glad I can't see it. No,
yeah,
hit me up.
You can walk back whatever I've said that's wrong later. But I'm trying to give people straight answers as best I can.
Yep. What do we have?
All right. Carry on.
Oh, okay, great. Well, every road project or any project that you have that's written into a grant has to be completed within a certain timeline. So the date of the disaster declaration determines when they have to be completed by. You'll see it when you log into your portal. This is another great thing of the portal, is that you have all this visibility. It'll have your grant written in there. Until your grant, your project, whatever you want to call it, project worksheet, is obligated, we can't extend the time on it. There's really no grant that you have to follow. So if your debris project doesn't get written up by that 6 months from the date the disaster is declared, don't worry, we can extend it after it's obligated. But I think that happened a little bit in the last disaster. But for permanent work, you know, obviously, sometimes culverts or bridges, especially in Vermont, can take quite a while to get completed. There's permits that you have to put in place. You have to have an engineer develop it, design it, and then you're putting your RPs out. And then, okay, now you've got all these responses. You've selected one. Oh God, and now it's winter. And all construction's halted because either you can't work in or around the waterways during certain times of the year. Multiple different reasons. As long as you are just not saying, we don't have time to do that, and you're making a good diligent effort, you can have that contract or that project extended. All permanent work has to be completed within, is that a year and a half? I think 18 months, something like that. Yeah. 18 months from when the disaster was declared, which was just the other day, the 20th. So 18 months from then, you have to complete all the construction on your permanent work projects. And if you're within no greater than a month. Don't send it to me today and say, we are not going to be done in 18 months. I need to see that you're actually making an effort, and so does FEMA. So a month before the permanent work deadline comes up, please reach out to me and say, hey, Kim, we are not going to be able to complete with, include in your letter the disaster number. Because as you guys know, I have like, you might only have a couple, but I have like 12 open disasters or something. And then I need the project number that's you're talking about, the disaster number, and say, we are not going to be able to complete it by this deadline. We need until this date to complete it. Please don't shoot for another full year or something unreasonable. It's just kicking the can down the line, which FEMA doesn't really appreciate. We need to show, and more so because Congress, and this is the situation we're in right now, is Congress has already allocated so much funding that they set aside for every disaster as projects are formulated. Those projects are already formulated and not completed. You know, until they're completed, the full funding goes out. But the funding sits there. And so we need to show that that funding is still being allocated as some sort of project. So letting me know that, hey, we intend to put it out to bid on this date, have the responses by this date, and do this, just show some sort of moving forward effort. And we can talk about that more as you get there. Okay, well,
Hey, Kim,
We're-
I'll just say on time extensions
yeah.
that
Oh,
just to
yeah.
put people at ease, you know, we, the state, have the authority to extend permanent work projects up to an additional 30 months upon request.
Yeah.
And there are, for every disaster, there are some projects that go
Mhm.
beyond 18 months just because of our short construction season
Yes.
and the time it takes to procure and design and engineer and sometimes get right-of-way things
Yeah.
dealt with. So there are always straggler projects, and for a disaster of this magnitude, there will be a few projects that need an extra construction season or two. We can do that. It's just a matter of communicating as you
Good.
go.
Yeah, good extenuating circumstances, not like, oh, we don't have the money. That's the wrong answer, because FEMA is funding 75% of this. The state's funding a good chunk of it as well. Please, you know, I know everybody's tight, but that will not be a good reason why it's just a stall. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know there's weather, there's permits and all that. One other very important thing is, and please spread this word, like if you're in the portal, it allows you to submit a time extension request there. It's horrible. It just extends it. It doesn't allow for the letter to go there. I need them sent to me because you do not want to put something in there that's written inaccurate. I need to review it, make sure it's right. I have to respond also with a letter, and then I'll put it into the portal and update in the portal. So do not do any time extensions or closeouts or any submission of that through the portal. The only thing that you should be doing through the portal is what your FEMA representative asks you to do. The damage inventory sheet, signing off on stuff, your EEIs. At this time, do not do anything in the portal. Just, you can go in there and look around, but do not start uploading or submitting projects or any of that nature, because it will create chaos. Okay. This is just quick, like, if you have something damaged and it's a road that now nobody lives on, and the town has just decided to close the road, make it a trail, or class 4 road it, you can do that and take the costs of what it would cost to repair that road that was damaged and do an alternate project in the town, or you know, like something different. But you have to get approval first. You have to say, hey, FEMA, we would like to take that, you know, $65,000 that would have used on this road and apply it to this project. Here's the design for that project. And yeah, yes, you can do that, but it has to be pre-approved first. And as well as improved projects. If you have a building that you want to make bigger or more resilient, you can do that as well, but it also has to seek FEMA's approval first because it could be outside of the foot. Anytime you're expanding the footprint of what was there previously has to be pre-approved. Which is a little bit of what the special considerations are. Every project, once all the garbage from the roads and everything is developed or put together, or the building or the sewers or water, whatever thing you have damaged is, there's different considerations. There's different FEMA little people that like will look at the project. You know, they will look at it for insurance. Where you're insured, is this an insurable thing? And I know it sounds ridiculous, but you're going to be asked for your insurance policy for the town. They want to make sure that your road isn't eligible for, you know, because like in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Bridge, it's completely covered by insurance. But they have to just have that uploaded in the portal to determine that these damages you're claiming are not covered by your insurance. If they are, that's fine, but insurance is going to be your first level of funding, and then FEMA will pick up. It's
Tim,
also
I'll
good.
just chime in
Yep.
to say that for road projects,
Mhm.
insurance is not available through VLTC passive, and generally insurance is not an issue for road projects. It is an expectation that FEMA will have for non-road projects.
Absolutely. Hazard mitigation, and that throws everybody through a loop. And I don't know what happened the last disaster, but this is what it is. So a damaged culvert you have in your town, and the size is already fine. A&R says it's fine. V-Trans says it's fine at that size, but the town's like, you know what, we want a bigger one, you know, and it can be upgraded if pre-approved, and that, or let's say you just decided you want to add wing walls to it or something, you know, you want to stone line some ditches or something that was not there before, or something to make it more resilient at the damaged site. It's called hazard mitigation 406. It's different than the state funding 404 program, but it's directly tied to that damaged thing that you had from the disaster. So it's part of that project. It is not a separate funding source. It is not a separate project. It's written into that project. So you may hear from a hazard mitigation guy like, hey, you have $50,000 you can apply to hazard mitigation. Do you want it? I mean, it sounds like a bonus check, right? Throw it on my project. No, it is not. You will have to say, yes, we would like that hazard mitigation. Here's our proposal. We propose to add some wing walls. Or, you know, if you're a utility company, you know, you want your poles completely are now in the river. I think that happened up in Stowe, the river realigned. You can choose to maybe realign those poles, and that might be some hazard mitigation measure that you could look at, or adding ice breakers onto the line so that they're not completely damaged all the time. Those are just options. Your hazard mitigation person can talk to you about what some of those are. Or if your road guy knows that, hey, this road washes out all the time, we want to make it more resilient, that's an opportunity to upgrade. But it's your job to come up with that proposal and give it to FEMA, and the cost estimate for it with the project. The project will not move forward until that proposal is written with it. All right. And then a little bit more there's also the environmental folks. They'll make sure that you're, you know, not doing like cutting down trees when the Indiana bat or somebody is supposed to be spawning or something in them, whatever they do. Different environmental concerns, and making sure that you're having the proper permits in place, that floodplain management, and if you have an historical building or culvert, even a stone line culvert, that you're keeping that and preserving that historic capabilities to the best. They'll work with you as you discuss your damages with your FEMA person. The next thing that will happen is you're going to submit your RPAs, not until after September 20th, when all the RPAs are locked and no longer can be submitted, will FEMA start to develop who you're going to be working with. And then they'll reach out to you, and that's when they'll talk about your damages and go into more details of some of these special considerations. Ben, did we want to mention anything about the insurance on this? I think there's a few people that it could apply to. This is
no, I think communities should be in communication with passive. I mean, the main thing at this
Yes.
point is to have filed claims for anything that could be covered by insurance.
absolutely.
You'll
Yeah,
have your passive
do not
information
wait.
when you talk to FEMA.
Do not wait, because that can take a while. And then also, you know, FEMA can't move forward with any of your grant on that until there is a decision made by the insurance. So, and they
we've
have
already received from passive an estimate of how their payouts are going to go for Barrel. So there shouldn't be a lot of insurance surprises for communities.
Yay. Okay, great, wonderful. Yes, we're ahead of the game on that one. And this just goes into all the details I pretty much said in the previous slide, that it's not a separate project. Upgrading to state codes and standards, like a 12-inch culvert, and A&R now says it needs to be bank full width and become such and such. That is just a state codes and standards. It's not, it might be written into your project worksheet under the hazard mitigation part, but it's not technically hazard mitigation. So you can still add mitigation measures onto that if you choose. These are redundant of what was previously stated. All right, so I'm reading the chat. All right, so some important things. We're down to our last 9 or so slides here, and I just have thrown in some stuff that I felt I kept seeing issues with. Is do not wait for FEMA to make your repairs. Replace it as how it was before, or bring it up to state codes and standards if you're required to. The only time you need to ever wait for FEMA permission is if you're doing something completely different than what was there before, or don't want to do that project anymore and want to do an alternate project. Always consult with A&R and VTrans. Obtain your hydraulic studies when required. And this is really important. You are in charge of your own grants, all right? Your FEMA person is here to help guide you and be kind of like the note taker, so to speak, to get the information from you and to put it into the portal to help you and throw it to the CRC to develop the project. But they will turn over. They have 50-week rules. They're not allowed to be here for, you know, unfortunately, we had quite a bit of turnover early on for the last disaster, but that could have been for a good benefit. We finally got the right PDMGs in that we like that we needed. I gotta say this appropriately, but we have great PDMGs. They are awesome. I'm sure we're going to have some new ones. I don't know yet, but they are here to assist you, and they're doing their best. And so do not rely on them to be your funding person. They don't have the checkbook. They're not able to say whether it's eligible or not. They are literally, unfortunately, on the bottom of, they don't make any of those decisions. They are just here to help guide you in the easiest way they can to get the maximum funding that you can. And they may not know all the answers to everything. So, you know, feel free to ask us. They will also ask their FEMA leadership, but do not hand over your whole box of paperwork to the FEMA person and expect everything to come out. you need to keep copies of everything. Even when FEMA's long gone, OIG could come knocking on your door and ask to see everything. And so have your documentation somewhere. I think, gosh, is it 3 years after the grant closes or so? In case of an audit, in case the state audits you. I think that our state auditing team does that as well. The thing is it happens. The FEMA PDMG may upload it into the portal, but the next FEMA PDMG, if you go into the portal, it's a nightmare. Like for one project, it could have 300 documents uploaded into it. And if it's not been uploaded and named appropriately, it's difficult to find. So if somebody's asking you for something, it's because they probably looked in there and they can't find it. So please, if you're able to produce it again, just scan it and send it across again. I know I'm like probably spending too much time on that, but this has been a huge headache for the last disaster is, that some information is lost because we're too reliant on them and in the portal. Make sure you have your own system in case. All right. I'm off of that horse for a bit. We are getting close to talking about money. So there are going to be these projects that are starting to be developed, and they're going to be either small, FEMA calls them small, if they're less than, well, if they meet that 3,900 minimum, but they're also less than $1 million. Those are small. As soon as a small project is written and obligated, my finance team, and I think I have I think I see a few finance gals on this line today. They're wonderful. They will send you out a sub-grant agreement that will release the funding. There are certain steps that have to take place before the money just falls out, the sky, which sounds cool. That would be cool, right? But they have to reach out, make sure that you are compliant to receive federal funding. Like there's different requirements that they have, like certificate of compliance, and they can probably speak more on behalf of all those. If you've ever received federal funding, you probably are aware of those requirements. It takes, expect to take about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after a project obligates. If you see it in the portal obligated, for you to have a response from our small team. We have a very small team of financial people that are working, and they issue subgrants in the order they're obligated. They'll send it out. There are several forms that need to be signed off on. They'll indicate in their email all the forms that need to be signed. So sometimes we'll get towns that see the email from the finance person and don't sign anything, and then they ask me, where's our money? They have to sign that off. There's also 2 spots. So make sure that you're signing, reading that, checking over the dollars to ensure accuracy, and asking any questions that you have. We pay out 75% of the small once it's obligated. The final state share, which is called ERAF, I didn't go into great detail on this slideshow because that's also found at Flood Ready. Your state ERAF percentage will be paid at the very end for all the projects once they're all closed. It's such a minimal amount. We typically hold onto that to the end, and because it can be fluid, it changes, so it's paid and distributed at the very end. For any projects over 250,000, the state will pay your ERAF based on actuals. It won't be on estimate. So you'll have to send, submit your cost documentation for the uncompleted work into us, or the summary sheets for the estimated work into our finance team. And, I think Zoe, Sarah, is there any other gals on here that, please speak up if I'm misstating anything on that finance end, because I know. Okay. All right, so large projects over that $1,037,000, we have to close those out. You'll have to submit to me all the RFPs, all the bid responses, all the cost documentation associated with that grant. And there's a closeout form on our website, submitting them in that order through email to me, and then we'll close out that grant. I don't expect to have a lot of closeouts that are over $1 million, but those are paid based on actuals. This just goes into it a little bit more. The only ones that have to be closed are large projects and Cat Zs. All Cat Zs need to be closed. You'll see them in your portal. You'll get super excited because there might be an obligated Cat Z for like 900,000. Well, it's an estimated one. So note that's the capped amount you could get to, but only based on the cost documentation and validated. So you will have to close those out. Well, we can talk about it when you get closer there. And the last form that we need to submit to FEMA so we never bother you and they never harass you again, is the project completion report. It actually closes the grant for good in the disaster. For any work that's still done, once you've done it, notify me or your state PAC that you've completed the work. And I will generate what's called a project completion report. I'll have your district tech go out or somebody come out and verify that the work is done according to the scope of work. I am no engineer, so I couldn't look at a bridge and say, yeah, that was written according to the scope of work. That's why we have those VTrans experts that can look at that for us. They'll sign off on it, the town will sign off on it, and we'll send it to FEMA, and then that grant will be officially closed. That's what it looks like. It's kind of hard to see this, but this just has one project written on here. You will need to fill out the date that you've completed the work and the cost that you completed it for. Sometimes I fill out those in advance for you guys. This goes into more detail if you're like, I have no idea how I get paid. For the smalls, for the large. That's just a cute little chart. All right. Well, this is this is a new slide, so I might be a little clumsy on it, but a little bit, I know that there's been multiple events, unfortunately, for all of us. It's a lot. And there's probably some huge cash flow gaps. I know that you may have heard that FEMA is in immediate needs funds right now, which means that only funding for emergency work could be released at this time. And so until, that is resolved, all other projects will move through the program and stall before the obligation. And so we still want to move things quickly and forward. There's still a lot of work to do before we even get to that payment point. But yeah, Ben?
So Kim, yeah, so I know that this is an area of real pain, particularly for communities that got hit last year and are still dealing with that as they go into repairs for 4810. We should take these offline on a case-by-case basis. You can always send an ask through the ADM inbox, and we are trying to work by exception with communities that are having cash flow challenges to expedite payments as necessary, and to work with communities, for example, that are taking on hazard mitigation related to a project so that it doesn't hold up their maximum payouts on other projects. So again, let's work on those on a case-by-case basis. Where DPS Finance is doing a great job of getting money out the door.
Yes. Yeah. And, the unfortunate thing is that the FEMA program is just reimbursement program. It's reimbursing you for work that you've done. So to get the maximum funding, do the work, and then have the project written for those actuals. And then once that funding is released from Congress, we can pay those out. I know that there's a couple links here, you know, and I know Katie's on the line from Vermont League of Cities Towns. Feel free to jump in or interrupt me at any time, but they have a question and answer link here about some of the finance options for towns that have some of these cash flow issues and what they could do. I know there's low interest loans that are available. Know that we're not able to tell your bank that you're getting a certain dollar amount. We cannot guarantee any eligibility. We can only tell your bank that, yes, this person's a part of the program. Yes, they could be getting a grant. But we can never guarantee funding either and neither can your FEMA PDMG until it's actually at the point of obligation. You know, we're unable to make that determination either, but we can help assist that. And FEMA will pay for the low interest rate up until that project obligates. So, you know, work with your FEMA PDMG and let them know that you have this low interest rate loan and loop them into that so they're aware of that and they can put that into your grant. I think the bond bank might be working together to see what the need is. So I'm reaching out to Ken Lynch here for similar package to what they did last year. And if you need immediate needs coaching, Katie Buckley says she's offering her finance challenge assistance there. Okay. So we are getting very close to the end. And I know you guys' heads are probably spinning because mine is. It's a lot. Just take one step at a time. This is my grants crew, and I don't have everybody on here now because I'm not quite sure who's going to be assigned as your grants manager from this grants department to be issuing sub-grants. But if you see an email, I think they come from Christine, Sarah, I forget, Zoe
and Callie.
And Callie, Gravelot, yes. That's the end of the line women, and you're gonna want to read their email because they are the ones that have the funding that they can release once it's obligated. And so if you see an email come from them, you've successfully navigated the portal and the FEMA program for your grant. And please read the entire email, respond quickly because we cannot release that money until that's been responded to and signed off on. Okay, look at that. Look at all these great policy guides. Look at this. There is this policy guide. I think this one may be the Papa G, or there's like a 300-page policy guide online, and it's called the FEMA Papa G. And if you are ever curious about what eligibility is or how it's eligible, what's eligible, that's where you can go. We also have fact sheets. We have a funding public assistance website, but I highly recommend where we've been pushing all of our data and our information to and our most up-to-date stuff to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns website at the flood recovery here. This slideshow will be uploaded there. Also a one-pager that has, quick to read one-pager about what the program is, how it works, is found there. And a multitude of other items. Oh, you can't even see this last email. This is the email you should use. Kim? Yes.
Kim, did you mention office hours?
My office hours?
Yeah, we're gonna do an office hour every Thursday starting in September, right?
Sure are. We sure are. We are starting September 5th at, I think it's 2 p.m. Well, let me double check here. You could probably, can you guys all see my screen now? I'm going into my calendar.
No, we can only see the presentation.
Oh, thank goodness, because this calendar is a mess. So I think it's September 5th at 2 p.m. And I think that Katie, right, is the Vermont League of Cities and Towns is going to post it on their website. We're going to have just a quick 1 hour, like, jump in, ask questions, you know, complain or get excited and be happy or whatever you want to do related to this disaster. That is the time to ask some questions or, I mean, feel free anytime to ask questions. But we're going to do those every Thursday for the next couple months, depending on, obviously, if there's no shows, we'll end it sooner rather than later. But that's just an opportunity to, even just if you want to sit as a fly on the wall and listen to what other people have to say, come in and join us. We'll have our Guidehouse representatives be on that call. You know, they're going to be some of the folks that are assigned to work with you guys. There are state consultants that we've hired and procured properly to work with you guys. And they're going to serve as kind of like the liaison between you and your FEMA PDMG. And here's our emails. I think you guys have, Ron isn't on the call today, but he is one of our public assistance administrators as well that will probably be working, Kyle, with you again on VTrans projects and also some of the specialty long-term projects. And all flooding relating questions should go to this email, which is very difficult to see right now. But yes, Ben?
So yeah, Kim, I put that ADM 2024 floods in the chat a number of times.
Oh, great.
And I just wanted to mention Guidehouse because I mentioned them in the chat, and I don't think we've talked about them. But the state of Vermont has a contingency, emergency, or disaster consulting contract with which we procured prior to COVID, actually. And Guidehouse Consulting is the national firm. They used to be associated with Price Waterhouse, and then they spun off. But we selected them competitively, and they have provided support to us under task orders to Vermont Emergency Management, first for COVID, then for last summer's 4720, and now we've extended their task order to cover the subsequent disasters, and notably this one, Beryl. And so when you get your FEMA program delivery manager, your PDMG assigned, we're endeavoring to also assign a state public assistance coordinator, or PAC, which will be either someone who works and reports directly to Kim, or somebody who comes from Guidehouse. But in any case, their job is to work with you and with the PDMG to support you. So it's kind of a way of having the state keeping an eye on the FEMA process and support you through it. And you can always lean on your PAC as essentially an extension of Kim's team to get support if you're having difficulty or you don't understand what your PDMG is asking for or whatever. You know, take it offline with the PAC and let them help you. But the Guidehouse folks are just extensions of our public assistance recovery team, and I think you'll find that they're great.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, the allergies are killing me today. Plus, I think you guys have probably heard enough of me. So I do want to say right now, everyone on this call, if you have any damages, or, you know, if you're, even if you're unsure if you want to participate in the program, if you have any idea that you might, you need to submit your RPA as soon as possible. Do not forget. And please don't assume that if you're the road foreman on this call, don't assume that your town clerk or a finance person is going to do it. That's happened in the past. You don't want to miss that deadline. So log into your FEMA portal and submit the RPA. If you do not know your account number or anything, just send me an email or reach out. I'll try to get to you in a timely manner. more than likely your town already has an account and there may not be people assigned to it yet, or there might be people that are not going to work this disaster assigned to it that we need to remove. So you are welcome. You're welcome. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm
You have it-
anticipating one. Let me just
Mhm.
jump on. I know there are some people from the Northeast Kingdom on this call,
Yeah.
and we touched on it lightly, but let me just say again that we're focused here on 4810, which was the barrel event. We know that the three northeastern counties, Caledonia, Essex, Orleans, got clobbered July 30th, and we actually have a major disaster declaration request for those three counties for both public assistance and individual assistance. We just got back comments from FEMA review, and it'll be going to the governor's office by Monday. So by the end of next week, we will have submitted a major disaster declaration for the July 30th event as well. And it is going to be a pain for those communities that got hit again and again to keep track of which damages occurred from which event. But if your lion's share of your damages were on July 30th, everything Kim just said is true, but it won't be submitted under this disaster. It'll be submitted under the next one.
Yeah, and the benefit of having these two back to back in your neighborhood is that when I have the presentation again, you don't need to attend this again. I mean, feel free to, but yeah, it'll be the same kind of information. So RPAs, that's the next step. Do not do anything else in the portal. If you want, you can upload your insurance policy or your town's procurement policy, your own town's your own town's policies, but do not make subgrants, do not create projects or do any of that. Do not expect FEMA to reach out to you before September 20th. I think that's the deadline for these RPAs, and then we're going to formulate teams, and then we'll be reaching out to you. The best
They
thing
call it the 19th because that 30 days is always a scary thing because some months have 31 days. I never figured it out, but
yeah, oh yeah.
You have 30 days from August 20th, whatever that is, and don't cut it close.
I better count them. Yeah. So just do it today and you don't have to worry. And then the other thing is, I feel like I'm a salesman. Do it today. Buy now. No, the other thing is just relax and do your work. Make your progress on your roads. Get them back going before winter. Don't delay anything. You have questions about stuff, reach out to us and just document like A plus B is C, like labor, equipment, materials equals a new road. So have it all developed individually. Set yourself up for success so that it's easy with your PDMG. Even if your PDMG knew nothing, you're able to put through. Don't worry though, however, we have great PDMGs, but I'm just saying the more knowledge that you have, the more successful that you will be through the program. Okay.
Hey, Kim.
Yeah. Hi, Chris.
It's Chris. Hi.
Hi, Chris.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. Excellent job and presentation. And from the FEMA side, we are ready and able to help support you and the people of Vermont. As soon as we get the RPAs, we already have boots on the ground and we're ready to go.
Yay.
Hey, Chris. Thank you, Chris. There have been a couple of questions in the chat and I've been trying to respond, but it would be great if you could put a finer point on this. Once an RPA is submitted, what is the time frame in which an applicant can expect to hear from an assigned PDMG?
Probably within a week to 10 days.
Great. Okay, thank you.
All right. Oh, Burke, Town of Burke. Oh, you know what, Town of Burke? I was just up there the other day. It's gorgeous. What's the question here? I went mountain biking with her. It's incredible. Can't wait. Oh,
I
well,
think
that's
we've
so
answered
nice of
everything
you.
in the chat. So,
Jim is saying that he is offering to help everybody. Just kidding. No, he says he's been through it, and you're right that it's the first few times it's like it's difficult and or at least confusing, and because you guys are navigating your regular job and this job. So please, if
good.
you can, hire somebody to help you.
Jim, be careful, or we'll hire you.
That's right. That's right. We're always looking. All right. So you guys have any questions? It's so great you can't throw eggs at me through the screen.
Chris, Wheelock is asking to keep their current PDMG, which is generally something we're going to try to do, is provide whatever continuity we can among towns that are already working with a PDMG.
Yeah, unless they're coming up on their
Agreed.
50 weeks.
And of course, you know, as you've already mentioned, the 50 weeks. My plan is, to the greatest extent possible, have the greatest continuity possible. So, yes, we would like to keep those relationships
Mm-hmm.
as best we can. But the reality is it will not happen in all cases.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people do really not have big hopes of being in Vermont over the winter, I imagine. I mean, come on, let's all tap out then, right? No, so I know Chris's team, also, you know, they are really knowledgeable now about our state codes and standards. So the better off we are moving forward and getting our projects developed or written or finding out what you want to do. When your FEMA PDMG meets with you, these are the key people here right now. So the more you have, better off you're going to be to move forward with those projects, because the team are all up to our state codes and standards and understand all of that. So, okay. All right, that's that. So 4810, go into the portal, pull down 4810 and register today. I appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you. All right, you can all leave unless you want to ask a question privately. I'll still be here. Thank you. Thanks, Katie, for putting the link to the PA office hours in the chat. I'm sure it's also on her website. Yes, there it is. Great. All right. All right, we are going to end the recording session and be posting this also.
I love to say this, Kim. We're giving people 7 minutes back.